If you haven't been here before, I'll quickly bring you up to speed. I found myself a HJ 4-door GTS Monaro. And the whole last episode was basically getting it out of the paddock, getting stripped down, pressure cleaned, back together, and patinaed it. Made it look like maybe it could run down the road. It does have an engine sitting in it, but why I say sitting in it is it's literally just sitting there, not bolted in, completely on the piss, and it's a 253. This car originally is a 308 turbo 400 car, and that is, as I say, it's a 253, and I think it's even a 3-speed manual sitting behind it. The paperwork in the glove box said as way back as 2002 it didn't have its original 308 even way back then, so the chance of finding its original 308 is about zero. I went on the scrounge and I have got a 308, and that's what this episode's about. So this is the absolute steaming garbage that I've bought. It's a complete motor. It's just, you know, all there instead of all there. But it is, as you see there, a 308. So let's stop talking and let's get into the 308. As I said, it is pretty much a complete engine, but here's where we're going to start. We're going to strip these pistons out. They've been sitting in a container under a tarp, and you can see although that's been bored and honed, surface rust has started to set in. That's an easier one to see there. So I need to strip the whole thing, check it over, but basically just clean it up. Clean all the surface rust off it. A little bit of hidden value, I guess, in my mind, in the fact that it did all get machined up. It has got new pistons at 60 thou over. I'd like to think we find new bearings in there, but I guess we'll see. And all the other parts I've just got sitting in a container, but I'll get to them as we get to them, one thing at a time. So I'm sort of hoping that's where there's a little bit of value. I didn't pay a tremendous amount of money for this, and having been machined, hopefully the crank's machined, new bearings already in it. It's been mocked up. I don't think there's rings on the pistons because there's rings in that box. It's 60 thou over. Let's just start getting it apart, marking everything as we come apart, and we'll go from there. You can see on the underside of the head there where they've been skimmed, but just never put back together. Righto, let's crack number one rod off. Have they been stamped? Is everything even tight? That didn't look great. Look, it's in the wrong hole. Whatever. I don't know why the lack of symmetry there bugs me, but it did. What I'm saying about is everything stamped. Generally when you're rebuilding motors, you'll stamp in the edge of the conrod there just a couple of dots, or just the number of the rod, so the top and the bottom of the rod always goes back together. Exactly the same as it came apart. I'm thinking as I'm talking, so that's why I'm making a mess of that, but I'll undo that guy, knock that fella out, and we'll start getting something done. Got a bit of writing there, maybe it's 10 under. I don't know, let's find out instead of talking about it. Well, they weren't tight, but as I said, they might have only been mocking it up, just checking clearances and whatever. Throughout this video, probably go, why is this guy so slow? Because I'm nervous, okay? You can't know everything about every engine, so I've got to be careful that they haven't done something wrong and I just don't copy it. Like if those rods ends are swapped around the wrong way, whichever, and I copy it, it's not going to end well. Just let me get a rag and I'll show you that bearing. You look at it like that and you go, well, that ain't new. Wait till I wipe it off. I think that's assembly lube. At least I hope it's assembly lube. Look, there's a couple of little tiny marks in that. But I'd say it's only from sitting. Maybe from being wound, just hand wound over through assembly as well, but I'm not going to complain. If it's been machined up, that's what I bought. Well, you know what I mean, like I bought it getting told that it had been machined and never finished assembly. Geez, I reckon that's pretty good. If you look at that crankshaft, it looks ground. I can see though, right there, one tiny little score, so we're still going to have to pull it apart and linish it. That could be as simple as it sat for a long time and then come along thinking, oh, I want to sell it now, I'll turn it over, and that's what might have put that little tiny nick in it, and that's why I want to pull it down. I'm not just going to go, yeah, that'll be fine. I've got tremendously low standards, but I'm actually pretty happy with that. Just sitting it back in there for now and we'll start knocking these pistons out. Only thing that worries me is I don't see any stamping on the con rods. So it makes you wonder. Don't wonder. Don't overthink it, get it apart. I'm just wondering, you know, they get all mixed up. If I start finding numbers later on, I guess it'll tell me what's going on, but for now I'm kind of... Well, the rods were tightened up, con rods. Just going to go nice and slow and just take one out at a time, refit the rod back up, just so I don't do exactly what I'm sort of saying, is mix shit up. Get carried away, stop thinking, put something down, go, which rod was that off? Just for once, slow down, Michael. The other thing is not to damage that crank. When I get this rod cap off, I'm going to push 2 little bits of hose over the thread, so if it drops down, I'll show you what I mean. Again, I wipe that bearing off. I think that's only assembly lube. It's not perfect. See, this is what I'm saying here. If that thread, as you push that piston down, hits that crank and scratches it, you'll rename yourself. So just put a little bit of old fuel line or something like that on it, and again on the bottom. And that way, if it happens to touch as it goes past, it's only the rubber rubbing on it. The rubber rubbing on it? You know what I'm saying. So now I'll just knock that rod back out, the whole piston back out, and we'll see what we've got. See if we can push this piston out without dropping it onto the ground. As I said, mocked up with no rings, and that's only just from us pushing it out. But anyway, we'll get it cleaned up, see what they're like. The crank looks great, but there is a couple little marks on those bearings, so at worst I might end up putting a set of bearings in it. But I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm struggling to see, so I'm going to move this out into the daylight a little bit better, and we'll get all the rest of these pistons out. Yeah, and that's got the same tiny little mark in that bearing, so you never know, we might put a set of bearings through it. So the block all stripped out and it looks okay, and they'll definitely hone up, but they absolutely need a hone. You can see where the surface rust starts. But if you look at the bearings, the main bearings aren't too bad, and I think with a light sand I'll get them. But a few of these rod bearings have got quite good scores in them. The one thing I will bring particular note to, that ain't new. I was told that they were new pistons and I thought that was just from sitting, but no, that's definitely combustion, because that discoloration there's from combustion as well. And on the end here I said there was something written. Well, it is. The mains and the rod bearings are both 10 under, and you can tell from just there. So she's had some work done to it, but definitely not new pistons. Some of them are quite discoloured, like that one. Anyway, they still look pretty good. We're reusing them. So brand new. Lost the receipts. So I guess next step is wash him down, get all the surfacey crap off him, and then start honing cylinders, cleaning up surfaces, clean those cam bearings. You see down in there, I'm going to have to get down in there and clean them up as well. Maybe with a piece of dowel with sandpaper on it and go in that way. Wire wheel all in here, just basically clean him up. Hideous yellow paint.
Yeah, we're gonna change that.
Yep. Back to factory red.
Nice.
So I've already found a couple of things I like and a couple of things I don't. That worries me. Hence why the other ones are out, I guess, but that one's definitely got to come out. It's got silicone around it. Things I like though is the cylinders look pretty good. I'm going to pick the worst of them and hit that one with a stone, but not yet. First things first. All that did come up pretty good, but I still want to run around it with a wire wheel first. There's no real surfacey loose rust, but I still wouldn't mind just wire wheeling all the surfaces, then Scotch Brighting this on a little whizzer. Probably get it done faster if I stop talking, eh? I'm getting out of the heat because this could take a little while. And you can sort of see I'm only halfway through. I haven't done from there up, but you can see it's all cleaned up as opposed to that crap. Just a little Scotch-Brite pad, just clean up those surfaces. I don't want to go too hard on that face with a wire wheel, but that's come up alright. That actually didn't take as long as I thought, which probably means I did an extremely substandard job. Now I've got to count, right? And you're right, I'm probably not moving fast enough. But this is not to put the crosshatch in it, this is to get rid of the surface rust. So it doesn't matter if they're a little bit lateral around the bore, I'll crosshatch it with the other one. It's definitely making short work of the surface rust though. Remember I was saying I'm not an expert? Well, if I didn't, I'm saying it now. I just learned something. Doing it like that, the same way the V8 sits, I was actually more biased to the bottom. I must have had more pressure on the bottom because I looked and I've still got a little tiny bit of pitting in the top. So I'm now going to turn it over the opposite I just had it, and go again, like do this side this way and flip it. You learn something new. You could see you were slightly biased because the surface rust was acting as a guide coat and showing me where I was rubbing harder. Anyhow, this is going to be a great job, clearly. You got a bit of crap on you. Hang on, hold still. Is that better? Yeah, okay. I'm just going to go over the deck while I've got it wet. Just with, I won't say a coarse sandpaper, but this is like 320. Probably too coarse, don't care. Cleaning surface, doing a great job. I'll show you. And just to stop my flash rusting again, just a terrible old chamois. Get all the loose sort of water off. I'm probably going to wash this 3 or 4 times like I say, but just for now and just for tonight, so I'm just going to knock this Welsh plug out with an old broom handle because I don't want to damage these cam bearings. And that way I can now get to that rear cam bearing. That doesn't seem right. Has to be. Anyway, I can now get to those cam bearings with a little piece of dowel. I'll show you. By the way, if that wasn't the worst preparation you've ever seen, then you've seen some shit. No, but seriously, I did start shortcutting that because it come up a lot better than I thought, really. So now I'm just in a hurry, like usual. As far as the cam bearings go, a little bit of dowel, a bit of folded over sandpaper. Where is it? With a slot at the end of it. You put your little sandpaper like that and then wrap it around. So when you put in your cam bearing, I'll just give it a little clean. I don't think there's anything wrong with them. You can just see they're a bit dull, like they've got dust and crap all over them. And just give that bearing a bit of a clean. I'm just going to do the same with the lifter bores as well. So as you can see, it is coming up pretty good. That's why I sort of started off, I guess, gentle at it. Don't worry about that stain, that's off my hands, but you can see it's come up pretty nice, actually, surprisingly well. But it'll just be another wash down. I'll finish these, wash them down, and I think that's pretty much it. I'm not going to lie to you, I've done a lot worse than that. A lot worse. Pretty good. Another good wash out. So all I do with that now, that's about as clean as I can get it, is air blow it off real quick in the shop, in the shed, blow it out, real quick coat of WD for the night so it doesn't flash rust, and in the morning I can start putting bearings back in it. Well, main bearings anyway. I've got to have a look at those rod bearings. Anyway, like I said, I've done way worse. If I ever have problems, it'll be cylinder 5. No reason I'm saying that, just saying it. Kind of a slow day really, but I think that's the way this job's going to go. I've assembled motors before, but I'm no expert, so I'm going to literally have a book next to me as I'm assembling and make sure I don't mess it up. Although I did save a little bit of time. Remember I said I was going to rough hone it with water, wash it down, inspect it all, and then, you know, hone it properly later. And no, I started rough honing it. It was coming up fine, so I just went on, just smash it with the dingle ball and get it over and done with. So, I mean, have a look at this. I'm no engine builder, but that looks just fine to me. I could have probably went a little bit harder on the crosshatch. They're still probably a little bit horizontal, but like I said, I'm no engine builder. I'm just doing what I can myself, because I'm not in this for a ton of money just yet. I did order a lot of parts, and it's amazing how quickly it gets away from you. But still, to have, I was going to say rebuilt, let's address that. What did we find out? Yes, the crank has been undersized on the main 10 thou, on the conrods 10 thou, and yep, new bearings in the mains and conrods, although I do have to check those conrod ones. A couple little scratches there that worry me, but I'll have a look at them tomorrow. That may slow us up. But the pistons, definitely not new. They got discoloration on them, so what are we looking at? A re-ring and bearing. It's maybe not a rebuilt motor, it's been rebuilt. I found stamping on the bottoms of the conrods, not the sides. And if it's 60 thou over it, sometime it's been oversized maybe twice. So yeah, re-ring, re-bearing, better than nothing. It's better than what I normally deal with. And on that subject, I know I joke about that being pretty sketchy, but I've seen way sketchier than that. That came up pretty good. It's now saturated in like WD or whatever, but I'll just sort of clean it up as I go. Not clean it up, but I'll sort of wipe it off and clean the gasket surfaces as I need to. But for now, that stops my flash rusting. It'll give me a chance in the morning is washing down that crank, check those journals. They look fine, but they've got what looks like assembly lube all over them, so it's hard to see. Check the bearings. I could literally start assembling the crank back into the block. I have got a gasket set that turned up a couple of days ago. I started ordering parts for this motor when I was in the middle of the last episode doing the HJ sedan itself. So as long as those rod bearings are okay, we should be able to get a fairway tomorrow, maybe even pistons in. Righto, I'll see you in the morning. So unusual form last night. I know I said see you in the morning, but I kind of kept going for a little bit longer. I washed down the crank, get all the old surface rust and assembly lube. There was assembly lube pretty thick on the crank. And that actually gave the journals just a little bit of a linish and cleaned them up. Only tip I can give you here is just don't sit in the one spot for obvious reasons. Doesn't matter if you use a ribbon. I like the flat surface, always a red one because it's high performance. Doesn't matter if you use a ribbon or a piece of leather or even, I've seen a bootlace. As long as you keep moving, it doesn't matter the shape of your, I don't know, whatever you're doing with this thing. As far as grit goes, I don't know, Google it. I'm using 800, which I think if you Google it, it's probably too fine. Is there a too fine? I don't know, but it's finer than recommended, I think. Just to clarify that, when I say about keeping it moving, I mean left to right. I don't mean that way. I mean left to right. If you just keep going in the one spot and you use a shoelace, you're theoretically going to dig the tiniest groove. So just over to one side and lean this ribbon back to that side. You can work it across. All very professional shit. Now we're an engine building shop. Nope. Just to try and make those journals as close to perfect as I can, because from what I can see there, it's a fresh machined crank. And I guess to answer one question that's probably popping up in your head is, why not just buy a running 308? They're not that dear. You see them advertised all the time for not that expensive. But see, this car, 308 turbo 400, it has to be a turbo 400 pattern block. Most 308s and I think all of 253s were all what's called a trimatic pattern, and that has the 2 top bolt holes right at the top of the block. I'll show you. Whereas the turbo pattern is slightly down from the top of the block. So the trimatic will be in that section there. This guy will fit a Chevy. What I mean by this guy will fit a Chevy, as in a Chevy pattern transmission, the turbo 400, turbo 350, which does sort of tell me that this block, and you Holden guys correct me if I'm wrong, but it had to be out of either a Statesman or a Monaro, a Sandman, something like that. There was only a few models that came out with turbo 350s and turbo 400s. This is a 76 block, so it's going to be a HJ or HX, Statesman, Sandman, Monaro, something like that, something that had a turbo 400 behind it. Anyway, that's the reason I'm going to the extent of this. It seemed like it had a bit of value in the machine work in it. It's the correct pattern block. It's in the HJ era. This one's 76. Stop talking. Let's take a look at this main cap. The next thing is exactly that. Main cap seals, main bearings, and sit that crank in. You've got to have the appropriate footwear too. You want to have your correct work boots on, just in case shit goes pear-shaped. This is what I'm saying about main cap, why we've got to be a bit careful. A couple of different types of blocks. The early QE blocks had a different groove there for a neoprene seal. This is actually what's called a rope seal block, but I'm not going to use a rope seal. There's an updated version of the rope seal, and that's this little guy. It is a neoprene seal, but it fits in a rope seal block. Oh. And he's got a bit of, I don't know if you can see that, but he's got a bit of a bevel on the back edge. As far as I'm aware, that goes inward, so that when crank pressure or oil pressure builds up, it actually lifts that seal up and pushes into the crank a little harder. Here's the one thing I didn't know though that we have to do, so I just sit that back down in there. So I just push that seal back in. If you look, it hangs out the top. I believe this upgraded seal is actually from a Buick V6 or something, but that's the bit that I've got to nip that down, and I'm going to nip it down about 1 mil off the top of that cap. But they reckon when you install them, you push that side into the bearing a bit and you have the other side the opposite, so you don't have your join mated right at the main cap to block joint. You just offset the joint. So I've got a little advancement on that. It actually cut really neat. I suppose it's not rubber, it's neoprene. I was expecting it to grab and be a prick, but pretty happy with that. Just trimmed them both off. I'll sit them in the bearing and sit them in the block and just tighten that cap down and just see how I went for clearance. There's something doesn't sit well with me about cutting seals, but anyway, who am I to argue with the all-seeing, all-knowing internet? So I've just got that side a little low and that side a little proud. So I've got to put that side a little low, just so I'm alternating the gap in the seal to the gap in the main cap. That's way too deep, you idiot. To a certain extent, it's going to push itself in, isn't it? Really. I'm happy with it. Take a look. I'm actually going to roll the seal around even further, because it actually ended up lining up almost. So all I'm doing is cleaning where my bearings are going to slide into, because I lubed it down so I wouldn't flash rust overnight. So this is just an acrylic lacquer thinner. I'm just going to wipe all those bearing surfaces, just so there's no lube behind my bearing, because that would be counterproductive somewhat. As far as your bearings going in, see the little tab there? The same on the block. And I know there's engine builders or guys that have done it before going, well, if you didn't know that, you shouldn't be doing it. Well, everyone's got to start somewhere, so maybe this is the start that someone needs. I've got a book over there that I'm like, if I don't know how to do something, I'm going to refer to that or the internet. But for now, that tang goes in that slot. Just like that. And I'll knock those ones in, and then we'll move on to laying the crank. Don't forget to wipe off your bearing. No use cleaning that if you don't clean this bit. Don't worry about the fact you're wiping all your lube and that off your bearing. You lube them up after. I just put the back of that bearing in and then slot down in your keyway. Now, I saw one video that said don't bother, and I saw one video that said do, so I'm going to do, and that is put a dab of RTV, silicone, whatever, just on the edge of that main seal. Not on where the seal touches the crank, but where the seal bashes into each other, like the joint. Sounds like a joke, doesn't it? Where the seal bashes into each other. A seal walked into a bar, and all the greenies got angry. I'm only using assembly lube, not just engine oil. Only for the fact that I'm still waiting on parts. I don't have a piston ring compressor, so that could be the hold up, and I have to go back to work in a day or two. So moral of the story, if you use oil and it's going to sit for a while, the oil can make its way out. Assembly lube cannot. So if I do have to go back to work and don't get this rotating and all the rest of it, this is still going to be in the bearings when I'm done. Nerve-wracking. I know I said it, but I'm going to be slow as anything putting this together. I prefer to be slow and get it half right. Main caps are numbered. I kept them all in order when I came off as well. On the main cap thing, they're not just numbered, they're also got an arrow so you know which way they've got to go. Always aiming forward. So normally you've got to spend 3 days and nights cleaning up bolts. But this had only just been installed, so somebody's done all that for me. I'm literally going to put a bit of oil on them. Fancy, I know. I was going to really redneck it up and find an old beer bottle, but I couldn't find a lid. You know, like at the pub, where you go to get the salt shaker and it's a Corona bottle. Just make sure when you're finger screwing them in, you can go right to the bottom, just so you're not locking up on anything. I did check these guys, they're all the same length. So it's not some motors that have got windage trays and stuff, they have different length main bolts. So you're not a mechanic and you want to have a go at assembling something, have a go at it. I'm not a mechanic. I grew up around cars, but if you can read and you know which end of the spanner to hang on to, There's enough information out there, you can have a go. My mum always tells a story that I used to, as a kid, pull stuff apart that worked just fine to figure out how it worked to try and put it back together. I think I had about a 50% success rate. That main's too far back. Yep. Here's why you go in finger tight first, look. So to me, I can feel the front of that main cap. It felt like it was kind of okay, but look at the hole. The cap's too far back, so it's got to come forward even more. That's why I say go in. See, that's tight with my fingers. Go in with your fingers first. Yeah, okay. That's better. And of course, as you're torquing it down, just make sure the crank still spins over. That'd be a nasty one. It's not a torch that I need, but anyway, it's helping. Newton meters is easy to read, so I'm going to start at about 27. Actually, this doesn't even go that low. So I'm going to bring it up to its lowest setting, and we're just going to go with that. Starting from the inside out, so you're pretty much going to go from 3 to 4 to 2 to 5 to 1, or it doesn't matter, just in a sequence, in a spiral out. Second stage, same again. Final sequence, 65 foot-pounds. Dead set. I'm gonna have to go and get my 4 eyes in a minute. 65 foot-pounds. It says between 60 and 70, so I'm halving it. Righto. Now, unfortunately, that's where that's got to stop. Back in the bag. Let's clean up some pistons and rods. This is another little game that my head plays on me. It's like, why don't you clean everything up, lay it all out, and then just put it together in one go? Well, number one, I'm not in an engine building room, so if I cleaned everything up, sat it up there, by the time I get to the pistons, they're covered in dust. If I cover them up, I've got a chance of knocking them over. So in my lint-free bag is the engine going to go and have a sleep. Let's get into these pistons. So here's what we're going to do with the pistons, cleaning them up. I've got them laid out, right? One down here. I'm literally going to pull the piston apart, cap, bolts, bearings, how they come out, lower and upper, then go and clean the piston. Then sand the bearings. And the reason I say sand the bearings, see those little black lines? I'm starting to think, because I can just ever so catch them with my nail, but look at this one. I touched that one ever so lightly with 800 and it looks mint, so I'm starting to think, are those black lines only the assembly lube, or maybe just dragged a tiny bit of grit? Anyway, I can save them, I know that for a fact. I don't have to worry too much about these because they're all numbered. There's one, all got numbers on them. And I don't have to worry about the orientation of the piston. Dimple goes to the front of the motor, and I didn't take them off, so I don't really have to worry about that. I will, however, check that the rod is on the piston correctly, and the only way you can check that is there's a chamfered side. Come out in the light. The rod has a chamfer on one side and a straight edge on the other. There's the chamfer there. I had it round the wrong way. See, just there? And there's the straight edge side. Well, I'll check it, but I'm 99% sure chamfer side goes to the counterweight of the crank, sharp side goes to the pairing of the rod. And that'd pretty much tell me if that's the chamfer side, so that'd go that way against number 2. There's the chamfer side, so he'd go that way. So the dimple will be on the right side of this guy, there. and the right side of this guy. There. So they go together, sharp side of the rod, sharp side of the rod, and outside to the counterweight. So like I say, I'm now going to sit here, I don't care how long it takes me, and just clean up one piston at a time, one cap at a time, one set of bearings at a time, and then sit them over on a clean table in order. And I'm happy to just poke along. I got my degreaser, which is strong enough to take some skin off. They're not taking skin off, they're not strong enough. Got my little tray there if I want to sit it down, some Scotch-Brite, bit of soapy water, and the pressure cleaner to blast all that filth out. Let's clean this guy up. Your ring grooves is probably where you've got to concentrate on most, because if you get crap in there, your ring can't not expand, what's the opposite? Contract. It can't contract far enough. So you're going to end up with issues. Not real concerned how long it takes either. I'm pretty happy to sit here on my legally acquired milk crate in the sun. Nice day. There's only one thing missing. Maybe later. Oop, wasn't expecting you back so soon. But anyway, while you're here, look at that. All the discolorations coming off those pistons. I know I said they're not new, they've been run. But I can tell you they haven't been run for long. Anyway, as I said, I'm going to sit here all day if I have to. I don't have a ring compressor. So, heaps of parts are turned up, and the ring compressor is either going to be this afternoon or in the morning. So I'm not really that concerned, but I can get rings on them, get them ready, start cleaning up that camshaft. That can even go in, so there's plenty to do. But like Alan said, it is 5 o'clock somewhere. Feels like a day off if I just take it slow. I'll turn her on and give her a crank. You watch me get covered in shit here. It's good weather for an outdoor shower. That's better. So I wasn't far wrong. That pretty much took me all day. But I'll tell you something I'd learned. All the pistons are cleaned up, but I'll tell you something I learned while I was cleaning them up. 2 things. I was putting the bearings in probably the wrong way, but easiest way to get them out is not to try and roll them out. Cylinder 2 and cylinder 3 I couldn't get out, that's why I'm back there now. I figured out an easy way to get them out, and that's push them sideways. You engine builders are like, duh. Anyway, and the other thing was, I was starting with the bearing coming, see that's where the tab is, right? There and there. I was coming in like that, and then trying to put the tab in last. I don't reckon that's the way to do it. I didn't just read it, I've just figured it out, because I went to put one in that way, and I slotted it down and went, oh yeah, that felt pretty good. And then looked and went, no it's not, it's over to one side. So the easiest way I'm finding to do it, or the best way, most accurate way, is put your tab in first and then roll that in. You engine builders are like, you didn't know that? No, I didn't. I told you, I don't know what I'm doing. But anyway, locate it with that end and then it goes in square. It doesn't look square though. Like, you look there, it looks like it's offset. And I think that's where I was going wrong. I was trying to line that up and then roll that bearing in. And it wasn't going in square. Anywho, it's in there now. All washed up, they come up great. Like, a couple of scuffs from, I guess, winding them over and stuff like that. Bearings look good. Still no piston ring compressor. So I'm just gonna clean up the camshaft. That's probably the next thing after the piston rings go in. I could actually put the rings on, couldn't I? While I've got all the cleaning stuff, I'll finish that cam, then we'll get into the rings. Put this on before you forget. Oh, and I've marked hell out of them. I've got numbered on the top, numbered on the rod, and of course they're stamped on the bottom. Why? Again, as I'm going in, if I'm looking at the rod, the bottom, it's everywhere. Surely, I just need alarm bells, right? If I'm gonna mess it up, I need alarm bells to pick up stuff like that bearing. I could have easily messed that up. Anyway, slow and steady. So why I say clean the cam up, it's brand new. It's never been installed, never been broken in. You can tell by the lobes. But of course, there's a little bit of surface rust, and I've just got to make sure that's not pitted. Otherwise, I might be buying a new cam. So I may as well try to sand this guy up, see what it comes up like. Yeah, then I'll move on to the piston rings. So camshaft cleaned up as well now. And the lobes were fine because they got that coating. It's never been used, but I was worried about the bearing surfaces. But at the minute, a couple little shadows on that one, but oh, that might just be WD as well. I'm making that worse by touching it. Anyway, I guess what I'm saying is it's going in as it is. It looks pretty good to me. And I've always got a lot of apprehension breaking in flat tappet cams for the first time, but that just sends it to a whole new level. So anyway, anxiety plus. Let's start putting some rings on. Okay, change of plan. I think I want to have a read through this, but I'm losing daylight, so I just want to squeeze something else into the end of the day. I want to have a good read of this, maybe even watch a bit of a video on fitting rings. I know there's a beveled edge and you got to turn it up or down, and it pretty much tells you all that. But by the time I read through that, the day's over. So what I'm going to do, come with me, is strip down the heads. The previous owner had all the appropriate bolts still screwed into the heads. I've taken exhaust manifold bolts out, labelled, rocket cover bolts off, labelled, head bolts, even intake bolts. Now I'm taking rockers off. I will probably buy this one thing. I will spend a couple of bucks on. I'll probably buy roller rockers, adjustable roller rockers, because there's that many dimensions in this thing, in that, if I can show you, wrong head, there, they've been skimmed. I won't say milled, I'll say skimmed. The block has also been skimmed. From factory, these rockers are non-adjustable. It's bolt them on, torque them down, that's it. But the base circle will be different on the cam. Heads, block skimmed. We didn't know the factory thickness of the head gasket. My point being, so much has changed. If I just bolt these down, torque them on, I could have too much preload on the lifter. I could have not enough preload on the lifter. Either way, it ends in disaster. So I'm going to get adjustable rockers to take that dimension out. The other thing I want to do, clean up the surfaces, obviously, but I want to pull the valve springs. Pull the valve springs, make sure that the valves are traveling freely, because if they've been sitting and they've got a little bit of surface rust, can't quite see in there, but if they've got a little bit of surface rust, the minute that valve sticks, the pressure sent to the camshaft wipes a load off the cam, a lobe, not a load, puts load on the cam, wipes a lobe out, and we're done. So as much apprehension about that cam that I have already, I think I need to disassemble these heads and make sure those valves are clean, no surface rust. Let's get them apart. Actually, let's clean them up first, surface wise, then get them apart. Another thing I've done is just run around the edge of that gasket surface. It was really hard, heavy casting. Give yourself a bit of an opportunity to get it to seal. There's actually some pretty nasty casting marks there, but anyway, I just zipped around both heads just so we can get a better opportunity to seal to those rocker covers. It's probably not a bad start for today, and I'll get those heads washed down tomorrow. I've got all the surfaces cleaned. I'll get them washed down and pulled apart tomorrow, and do some reading on these rings tonight, just to make absolutely certain I know what I'm doing when I'm fitting them up, you know, beveled edge up, beveled edge down, whatever. Anyway, more technical crap tomorrow. Good start. I'll see you in the morning. So while I'm cleaning, we're going to start with these rings. Probably start with cylinder 1. And I didn't have to stress out about any of the ring stuff I was thinking about yesterday. I must have dealt with some really cheap ass rings before, because I was worried about orientation of the ring, beveled edge up or down. Nah, check this out. That's your oil rings. They're your oil ring retainers. But these are obviously decent quality rings, because there's your top ring, grey edge, grey top, silver edge, and they literally say top. And second ring, it's grey on the side, grey on the edge, and again top. So they're as simple as, let's install them. So I've just had a moment of guilt where I thought you better at least check the ring gap. I was thinking, you know, run with what you got. I've set a ring in there, a top ring. Just sit your piston in so it's square in the bore. And then get a feeler gauge, and the gap's up here, I'll show you. I don't know if you can see the gap, but there it is there. And it's supposed to be 4/1000ths of an inch for every inch of diameter. And this is a 4-inch bore, so that's a 16 thou gauge, and it's actually got a little bit of clearance, which doesn't shock me in the slightest, because I honed the hell out of this. So let's go up a couple of gauges and see what we've got. I'm going to go this way. So I can't quite get a 20 thou in there, so I've got about 19 thousandths of an inch, which means we're a little bit over, but we can take a little bit of boost. No, it doesn't mean that at all. It just means I've honed the shit out of it. I'm just running with the junk I got, alright? It's all good. It's promise you, it'll be all good. Well, I don't know that. I'm just saying it, make myself feel better. Hey, let's talk about that. You see a lot of guys that go, you've got to have your rings perfectly gapped here, here, here. I don't reckon so. I followed the instructions there, the oil ring, put the two colours, if you can see there, straight above the pin, and have your oil ring retainer, or guides, or whatever you want to call them, an inch one side and an inch the other side there. It says an inch to an inch and a half, so there's one there, there's one there, it's a bit further. But these top guys, honestly, they are going to move. I don't care where you put them, they're going to move. Just make sure they can move, but they're going to move around. Don't put them above each other on install, but let's say if one's there, I'm just going to put one over there, and call it good. Don't overthink it. And I guess there's always differing opinions on that. You've got to have that perfect, but you see it all the time. People go, no, they're going to move. They're going to move inside the motor. If they don't, it's only because the pistons, some pistons have little dimples in the channels there. But if they have the dimple in the channel there, that's where you install the ring. You can't get it wrong. Like, it sits, end of the ring sits on that dimple, end of the ring sits to that dimple. It can't move. But you also can't put it in wrong because the dimple's there. You can't get the ring in. Anyway, ranting. Moral of the story, I'm not concerned about it, even if I'm wrong. Oh, that was close. Now you know why Michael wears 4 eyes. Because he's starting to not see simple things. I've got to be getting better at them as I go, surely. Can't be getting any worse. I've got good news. I've got 4 rings left and there's 4 pistons, so far so good. That's how low my standards are right now. Imagine the pros, they'd be like banging rings on, rolling a smoke with the other hand, torquing up main bolts with the left leg. It's definitely not a job you want to try and do fast, but that was probably my smoothest piston ring install. Still second guessing every move that I make, but anyway, we're done. Piston's fitted. Now we're just going to wait for a piston compressor. On that subject, I'm not that ridiculous that I didn't know I was going to need a piston ring compressor. I actually had one, but I didn't realise that it got wet when we went underwater and it rusted solid. I pulled it out the other day to went to just check it. No, gone, in the bin, had to order a new one. Now for the dirty stuff. Let's get these heads that I cleaned up yesterday, let's get them out and get them washed down. So I washed them all down, and I did give these a fair heavy pressure cleaning just to get all the loose surface rust and that sort of thing off, if there was any in them, just so we don't have, you know, shit floating around in the engine. But what we're going to do now is I'm going to pull each individual valve spring off with one of these guys. It just goes over the top of the spring, grabs down, if I can do it with one hand, like that, and then you wind that down, compresses the valve retainer, which is this bit, and those collets, or that little posi lock, he'll lift out. Then the retainer will come off, the spring will come off. We're going to check the pressures of a couple of springs, but I'm really going to check retainer to valve stem clearance, just because this is an aftermarket cam going in and it's got aftermarket rockers, or it's going to have aftermarket rockers. I want to check they're not going to interfere, and I want to check that the valve is moving freely. Yeah, I know, that was a lot. Probably too much. Let me just get a spring off. Actually, jump in here closer and I'll show you what I mean about these retainers. Jeez, this is only just going to be big enough, this machine. I might have to spread that a bit. Machine. Yeah, that's right, this is the machine. Those two little arms are either side of that valve retainer or collet. That's your actual retainer there. And if I hold the valve in and push down on that, see, they've now popped out. And this is where I lose them and never see them again. So they can come out. No, gonna have to go down further. One. See the rib there? Just there. That's what grabs on the top of the valve. I'll show you that in a sec. If I can get the other one out. There's the valve springs. The stem seal, it looks okay. And the valve's floating really good actually. And so if I remove that stem seal, they got K's on them too, clearly. Brand new rebuilt, lost the receipts. I'll clean them up. The seat looks okay. You can see the edge there looks okay. Not the seat, the edge of the valve. The seat's here. Doesn't look too bad. I probably should lap that a little. Might do that. So I'm just going to lap this valve. It's probably a little bit different to what you'd expect, but just going to put a little bit of paste on the edge of it. Just like that. And then pull it in. Yeah, it's kind of a redneck way of doing it, but supposed to do it backwards and forwards. Well, I can do that. Let's have a look at that. Looks pretty bloody good to me. Righto, so I'm going to go along and do every single one of them on both heads to check valve seal. But before I do, I'll show you what I mean about valve retainer to valve guide clearance when you're lifting a cam. Righto, so see the length of that guy, right? So you put your retainer on, your locks go in. So that's how it sits when there's a valve spring in there. The valve retainer to valve guide clearance is that there. So that's with your valve retainer and your locks in without a valve spring, and the clearance I'm talking about is that, bottoming that out. So we have to measure the distance. That is the maximum lift, because if we hit that, we're bottoming it out. So that's absolute maximum lift you can go. There's more dimensions to that, but just let me measure that first and we'll start with that. 660 thousandths of an inch. So there you go. Does that mean we can run a 660 thou lift cam? Hell no. Hell no. That's where failure lives. But there's a lot of other things. So I'll just write that down. So we've got... Righto. So we've got valve retainer to guide 660 thou. We'll be nowhere near it, but I'll show you the other one. So next thing you do is you get one of these little fellas, and that's going to tell you your installed spring height. In other words, the height from the seat to the top of that retainer. Now these guys are set at 1 inch, and then every time you see a number exposed there, that's 0.6, as in 1.6 inch, 1.7 inch, 1.8 inch, etc, etc. So we're going to go in like that. I'll get my numbers this side so you can hopefully see them. In with your retainer, your locks or your collets. I've struggled to name them today, haven't I? Called them posi locks and all sorts of shit. Now I'm just struggling in general. Come up. Okay, so that took me a week, but I've got those locks in, and we'll start winding the bottom down. Come around here, you'll see these numbers. You see there how it's got 1.7, well, it's got 7, and it's just about to expose the 8. So when your 0 comes around to there, that's 1.8, 1.8, 1, 2, so 1.88 of an inch. So almost 2 inches. So that's your installed spring height. I'll show you why you need to know that. So here's one for you. I just found that that diameter is too big for the bottom of that milled section in there, so it's actually inaccurate. That was for a big block. Normally I use them on big and small block Chevys, and that seat there is obviously smaller, so I've gone about it a different way, and this will be accurate enough for what I'm doing. I'm just going to sit the end of that vernier in at the bottom of that machine section there where I couldn't get in. That was like sitting up on that ridge there. And I'm going to go, that's it there, 1.79. May as well say 1.8. So then you come over here to one of these little fellas, and with your retainer on, you're now going to measure. You're going to close that gap up so that your retainer gets to the end of that measurement there, and so that in pounds it'll give you your installed seat pressure. So if I now run that down to my 1.79 or 1.8, which is about there, I have 80 pounds of pressure at the seat. So 80 pounds at the seat. I know the camshaft lift with a 1.6 rocker we're going to use is 486, and that leaves 1.314. So now we're going to basically bring that spring down to 1.314 and see what we've got at fully open. So if I wind that down to 1.314, we'll see what we've got. I just touched that. About 244 and a fraction. So it's probably a stock spring, but it's good enough. The next one we've got to check, and this is the important one. As I say, that's probably not quite enough. More than likely a stock spring. But the thing you want to check with a stock spring is how close we are to spring bind. That's the other one that's going to kill us. Spring bind is where absolute failure lives, and you'll see it because the needle will stop traveling nice and slow and we'll just go whack. There it goes, see that? So it's going nice and slow. That point there. I'll see if I can do that more gentle. There's our spring bind. So we have absolute spring bind at, that's not a bad little spring, 1.07 inches. So what's the moral to all that? Well, that's where it bind. It was a total of 730 lift. Our open pressure at the cam lift that we're using, and our seated pressure at installed height. The retainer clearance was 660, so that's telling me, look, if you wanted to go bigger, you could probably safely go out to, I'm going to say 550, so you've got 110 thou clearance to lift that valve, right? But that spring, would it hold it? No way in God's earth would that spring do the job. You'd be valve floating the thing at 4.5 odd grand, 5 grand. With this little cam only lifting that much, that'll probably be flat out at 5 grand, but the cam is on paper said 2,000 to 5,000. So will it work? Yeah, it'll work. That's my point. It'll work for this one. Do you get all that? It's to answer the question people have of how big a cam can I put in my stock motor. Well, that would be determined by that retainer to guide lift minus a margin. Like I said, I minused about 110 thou, so that would give us 550 max is what I'd go on that valve. Would that spring compress? Yes, it would actually take that lift before bind. It doesn't bind to 730 thou lift. With that seat pressure, no way in God's earth would it hold it. Nope, it'd valve float. It's just not good enough spring. It would not. You'd need a lot more spring to be revving it or to be lifting it that hard. Moral of the story, it'll work for this. Let's just chuck it in. Useless information, do whatever you want with it. So to go through every single spring, it's going to be fairly time consuming. I'm probably not going to test every single spring. They've been unloaded. It's not like it was sitting with valves compressed, ruining springs. So I probably won't test every spring. I know roughly where they're at. They're probably not much better than stock if they're not stock, but I will pull everyone apart, lap each valve, and that's probably going to take me half the night. So I'll see you in the morning. So my ring compressor has finally turned up and I've got a few pistons in there, but it's not the best ring compressor in the world. I'll show you what's happening. So you oil up the rings. I put my compressor over the rings, but what's happening is when you clamp this guy on, once the piston moves past that pivot point there, it's flexing these, and I'll show you, I'll see if I can do it. So just as you go to pop those rings in, see how it's flexing there? The angle of it, which is allowing those rings to pop out. So I'm finding it's a bit of an acquired talent to know exactly how hard to pull them together. You pull it too hard and it flexes those jaws out and allows the ring to pop out. Bit of lube on the bearing and I'll will go in. And again, all you've got to remember, dimple to the front of the motor and make sure the rod's got the bevel on the right side. I haven't pulled these off, so the right side is going to be that side there, but let's go in. And I've just wound that crank journal right to the bottom so I can't hit it with the rod end. So, and here's the tricky bit. The harder I seem to pull that clamp in, the more it seems to flex. So I've actually been having 3 or 4 goes at this. I haven't been getting it first time at all. No, missed it. No, I haven't. No, I haven't. Not even to it yet. There he goes. You are my lucky charm. That's the first one that I've got in one go. I think I'm starting to get the idea of how hard to clamp it in. The harder I clamped it, the more it did this. Basically, the harder I clamped it, as the piston come past there, it was flexing like that and popping those rings back out. In this one goes. And then you just line up your conrod so that you don't hit your crank. I'm not kidding, that was literally the first one that I've got in one go. That first piston, I had 6 goes at it, just trying to get those rings in. It's like you're thinking the tighter you clamp it, the better it's going to be. Well, it's not the case. The tighter I clamped it, the more it flexed the edge of that ring. Not the ring, the ring compressor ring. What are you saying, Mike? I would have ordered a different one had I used that before. I would have just bought one of the full rings that you buy specifically at the diameter that you need. I bought that one because I thought if I'm doing another motor, it's variable in size. Once I get used to it, it'll be alright. I'll tell you one good bit of info I can give you. After every piston, roll the motor over. Why? Because if you put one in and go to roll it over and it feels tighter than it should be, you'll know something's wrong. I actually did that once. I was rolling it over, last piston on a big block. I had a 454, I was just putting rings and bearings through it, and last piston, in it goes, went to roll it over and it stuck. And what actually had happened is one of the oil rings, the end there, had actually come out and sat up, and I'd bent the ring up the side of the piston. Not great, but would have been worse if I'd put the rest of the motor together. At least I rolled it over and went, that feels wrong. No, there you go. It's exactly what I was talking about. I flexed it and that top ring's popped out. It's alright, I'm getting the hang of it. It's no big deal, you just got to do it again, but I did think it'd be better. Maybe I just need to be better. Do better, Michael, do better. I got him, but every other one I actually had to come completely back out. This bit makes me nervous because if I hit my perfectly linished crank, I'll put a mark in it. I don't want marks in my crank. Might seem a bit anally retentive, but I've got a memory like a goldfish. I'll start talking to you and then go, what was I up to? And now my amazing brand new camshaft. It is brand new. You just got to forget about the fact I had to clean surface rust off it. It's pretty good lube. That is bloody good. And of course when the lifters go in, I'll just put a heap of that on the bottom of the lifter too, so you get more on that lobe. Now these 308's got a bit of shit going on from this point here. You've got a cam retainer plate and also your oil pump drive, so we've got to fit them before, you know, timing chain or anything like that. So let's do that now that I can't touch anything. Here's one I didn't know, mainly because I've never assembled a 308 before. That's your cam locking plate, like I was saying, right? I think I just put that on the wrong way. But anyway, this is the bit I didn't know. It's got a hole in it, that bolt. So when it goes in there, like so, that's the oil gallery from the lifter bore, squirts out to get the timing chain and the cam gear and oil pump drive. Not cam gear's down there, oil pump drive. I might have to put that in after. I might just pop that oil pump drive in first. And a little roll pin. Well, I see now that holds the oil pump drive in. See, told you I'd never put one together before. Come out, camshaft. So that stops that from riding up. Nice one, Holden. Thought of everything. See how that works, but that's your oil pump drive, and there's the shaft. The oil pump comes into there. So when your cam spins, it turns your oil pump drive. So to get this pump in, the drive's pretty much straight up and down like that, so I'm going to turn it, make sure I see I'm bottomed out onto it. If you come around here further, see how I'm bottomed out onto it, so I know that I'm hitting it, and then just turn it till I feel it drop into the cog. There. So now I know that gear is meshed in. If you're just turning that, you can't tell if it's in that cog or not. Oh, I can actually. I can hear it rattling inside the pump. That's another way you can do it then. Turn it so you can hear the pump gears tapping together. Learning something new every day. Look at me being all professional and talking things correctly. Righto, so timing chain. Roll your crank over to top dead center cylinder 1. So you get cylinder 1, it's always the most furthest forward if you see that cylinder slightly behind it. So that's number 1 there. Even if I didn't number it, I knew it was 1 because it is further forward. Once you've got your crank in place, you'll see your keyways up here, and there's your timing mark right there. Now you need to line that timing mark up with that timing mark there with 9 links in between. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that little guy there, maybe I should mark him, but anyway, that little guy there has got to go right on that dot. Next is the all-important oil pump pickup. You've got to back one of your main bolts out. Timing cover next, and all of a sudden we're starting to get somewhere. Actually, I don't want the timing cover the same colour, do I? I'll mask it off. I'll just have to mask it because I want to put the sump on. Keep going. I'm not leaving it yellow, is what I'm saying. It's not staying yellow. Just in case you're thinking, is this guy going to leave it yellow? No. No, this guy is not going to leave it yellow. I'm back to the old elbow torque wrench because I don't have a torque wrench that goes down as low as these need to go. So I'm just going to snug them in. Water pump. I'm missing bolts here everywhere. I'm getting wild now. I'm starting to stack washers. I've ran out of bolts, so I don't have a hell of a lot of choice. I've already put silicone on that, so I've sort of got to make it work now, don't I? Maybe even another one. Geez, that's terrible. I sound so disappointed. Look, because the rest of it was so damn good. So I think I'm out of bolts in a big way. I don't have enough sump bolts. You just saw the timing cover bolts were way too long. But I've got one spare, which I think is actually, believe it or not, I think it's actually the old oil pump bolts, but they're the same thread. So I'll just take one of them to the bolt shop and get it 10 mil shorter and take all those spaces out. I might be able to scrounge up a few sump bolts out of my HQ HJ bolts jar. That was everything that was in the car. I'll try and keep going. There's two sump bolts there. I'll see how we go, see if I've got enough. Made it by the skin of my teeth. There's some odd ones in there, but they're all in there. That's the important bit. So cylinder head's next, but still got to work on that valve, don't I? I haven't finished that, lapping that valve. So this is where I say I've still got a little bit of work to do. Last night I was lapping these valves and I pulled up because I found one that was pretty heavily pitted. You see the edge of that? It's actually had water or something. Little bit of a water stain there, so somehow it's had water in that cylinder, whether it's been while the motor was apart or not, I don't know. But it wasn't lapping, so I'm going to try and do something with that valve edge. But I slept on it last night because I didn't know what I was going to do. I don't have a valve grinder. The seat's kind of okay, so I'm not that worried about the seat. I am worried about that. Let's see what we can do. By golly, I think that might actually work. It's not stupid if it works. And just when you thought, well, that's about as rough as it gets, then comes this little gem. I've taped some sandpaper to it. And I figured the way I can lap that seat a little bit more aggressively than paste, it's got to follow the profile of the valve if it's strapped to the valve, doesn't it? I think I just invented a new sticker. It ain't dumb if it works. Oh, I'm calling that seat good. So I guess my 3 AM theory, that's when it came to me, about 3 AM, is that if I can lap that more aggressively than paste, using the valve as the angle, it's essentially going to mimic the valve, isn't it? So that seat should be right. And if I do the same to the valve, like this, hold on to the paper, definitely more aggressive than paste. It's not perfect, there's a few pits around that edge, but I can tell you that's a damn sight better than it was. Now the way for me to check if that's going to seal, put my spring on and all back together, and then fill the port full of like contact cleaner or petrol. Petrol will find a leak better than water will. If it leaks out the valve, you know you've got work to do. If it doesn't, we're good to go. I'm not 100% sure if this is going to be glorious victory or earth-shattering emotional defeat. We're going to give it our best crack. After what you witnessed, it's probably earth-shattering emotional defeat, but we're going to go with it. At this point, I'm going to call that victory. Oh, so there's plenty in there. Calling that good. So here is some useless trivia for you while I knock these head bolts in. But I didn't know this. Again, it's only from what I've researched. But head bolts, talking about the 70 foot-pounds, 45 and then 70 foot-pounds, except for the outside two. They are only 55 foot-pounds finished. And the exact words in that video was, or you will break the block, or you can break the block. I can't remember if I showed you that earlier in the video, but I was thinking, did they have a bolt in, swinging a chain off it and it snapped out? But I'm wondering if that's what they've done. Those two there are actually a shorter bolt. And as I say, these guys 70 finished, and these guys 70 finished. Those ones 55. The reason I'm not too concerned about it is in the later model motors, they didn't even have those bolts. They literally had the ones across here and that was it. So additional clamping, yeah, I get it. I've got a set of studs and I'm going to put studs in those two, both sides, because that's still got like 6 or 7 good threads under the broken part. The bolt won't go right to the bottom. It'll only go to the broken section. But if I put studs in there, I'll be able to go deeper, use the good threads, and then just put a nut on it. I did tell you it was useless trivia, didn't I? Sorry. And these are my 2 studs I'm going to put in, just so I can use those bottom threads. You know, I was saying, ironically, the later model blocks don't come with you know, those holes at all. Well, that stud kit, it didn't come with the studs. Like, there's literally only 10 long ones, 5 on each side, so it doesn't have them in the kit. Perfect. So that's a $90 fix to a broken block. Don't know if I'd go adding a blower to it or anything like that, but you know, it's fixed for now is what I'm saying. There's going to be that one question, why didn't you just put the whole stud kit in? Well, 2 reasons. One, I just found out it doesn't have those bolts, so it's 4 studs short. And the second reason is I trust the factory Holden head studs more than I do, let's face it, probably a Chinese stud kit. If it wasn't for the fact that the later blocks didn't even use those bolts, I'd probably be more concerned, but I'm not. Next to go in, I guess, is lifters. And I didn't buy a cheap lifter. Well, they weren't crazy expensive, but they're a reasonably good brand. I think you pronounce that Male, which they make a lot of pistons and stuff like that, race gear. So I assume they won't be a bad lifter. Anywho, in they go. Just going to put a whole heap of assembly lube, like a big dollop of assembly lube on the bottom, and then just wipe the sides. There you go. Some people will soak lifters in oil to try and get a little bit of oil inside the body. I'm not going to bother because I'm actually going to try and prime the system externally. I think I mentioned that before, but anyway, we'll get to that. I'm going to try and run an external pump into, let's say, the sender unit port and try and prime it externally. Mainly because that pump in the instructions said don't pack it with grease or you void the warranty, so I've got to try something different. So all in all, we've got a fair way today, but right now I think I'm up to what I call the fun part, and that is where I clean down all these surfaces, mask it off and paint the damn thing. That's right, that's my fun part. I reckon it's a top way to finish the day, to be honest. Wash him down with a little bit of acrylic lacquer thinner everywhere I'm going to mask. And my primary piece. And then paint him before I put the manifold on, before I put the rocker gear on, because they're just hard to mask around. It's no big deal, I could do it, but I just don't want to. Then in the morning, we will get the rocker gear on, get the intake manifold on. Pray that headers turn up, because that's about the only thing I can think of that stops me from starting this thing. I have no headers to put on the engine stand. Anyway, small issue. It's the right sort of weather for painting anyway. One thing I can tell you with paintwork is the less the better. The thicker you make that paint, the more chance it is of peeling, especially when it gets hot, to the point where your first coat, put it on super light. You think of it like overspray. You get a bit of overspray on something like your glass or your good paintwork, it sticks like shit to a blanket. You can't get it off. Just think about that for a second. Who was the first person that went, geez, that really did stick to that blanket, didn't it? Anyway, my point is it'll stick really well, but if you dump it on really heavy, say on top of shiny paint or glass, when it dries you can actually peel it off. So the theory is really mist it on, light as anything. Not that light. Then your second coat, a little bit heavier, is sticking to the light coat. Does that make sense? Any sense at all? I'm just having a little bit of a moment while it's drying. Hell yeah, brother. I guess that's one positive out of having 40+ degree days. It's already dry. I gotta tell you, I'm not kidding, it is sweltering today. It's got to be mid-40s, but I much prefer a hot day than a cold one. I give you that tip, and it's good for painting. So going back through today, which I think was an awesome day, but it doesn't sound like we did that much. Pistons in, heads on, I don't know, timing chain and all the rest, sump. Yeah, I guess it wasn't too bad. But tomorrow, balancer, valve train, that'll be a big one. Valve train, so rocker covers can go off. And I do have the rockers here. I didn't buy an expensive rocker. These are probably the cheapest ones on the market, and they're a little bit prettier than I normally bother with. But if you remember, the reason I bought them, it's not anything to do with roller rockers, high performance, nothing like that. It's due to all the differences in the clearances. The factory rockers, I know, I've said it, but they're non-adjustable. You bolt them on, you torque them down. But because the heads have been skimmed, the block, all the rest of it, the different cam, it just puts it all out, and that just makes it simple. 360 bucks, I think. They weren't expensive, and it just takes out that grey area of having to check if they're going to torque down, how much preload I've got. Bolt them on and go. Surely they can withstand average RPM, even though they are cheap, and we all know where they're probably from. Let's not talk about it. But yeah, in the morning we will set up the preload on the lifters. That's something we can work through. I'll show you what I call the easy way. An intake manifold. I've got a nice little Edelbrock. It's absolutely brand spanking new. Painted it. Just silver engine paint. It's a Holden Performer. It'll be great. You've got to give yourself little victories. Now it's looking like a motor. And I mean, I've probably been a bit slow on that because I'm shitting myself. I don't know what I'm doing. I've assembled a couple of engines. That's my first 308. And so you're second guessing yourself the whole way. So if you're second guessing yourself, check it. Literally go back over and check it. To the point where I put the sump on, and like I said, I watched that video and it said 35 foot-pounds, and I'm at about 42 or 43. So in a funny way, I'm like, have I over-torqued those stock 50-year-old, what is it, 76, what's that? Oh yeah, 50-year-old this year, 50-year-old rods, but it doesn't have new bolts in it, so hopefully if it is a bit over-torqued, they're just going to stretch those 50-year-old rod bolts. And if it doesn't, if I have over-torqued it, we'll kick a rod out. I hope it doesn't. If it does, we'll just fire up to 253 and erase the whole episode. Anyway, righto. I'll see you in the morning. More tomorrow. Technical stuff tomorrow. More technical than that. See you in the morning. So today is the fun bit. And by fun bit, I mean nervously don't stuff it up bit. And that's adjusting lifter preload with your rockers. And I think I briefly touched on why I'm putting roller rockers on it, not just the stock rocker gear, is the stock rocker gear is not adjustable. And so you're at the mercy of whatever alterations are being made, base circle, shaved heads, thickness of head gasket. You're at the mercy of that for your preload, but this is probably the simplest way I could think to get around it without having to measure every damn thing and then calculate, is my preload going to be right? And there's a couple of different ways of setting up valves or valve lash. I think back in the free 327 episode, I did one technique. Keep working, don't talk. No, I did one technique that is splitting the firing order. So you're taking the firing order, you're splitting it in half. So you're putting the first four cylinders above the line, last four below the line, and whichever one is in the middle of the rock, and by that I mean when the intake and exhaust valve are changing positions, then you set the opposing cylinder according to the firing order. Does that make sense? I guess if you want to go through that technique in detail, go back to the free 327 episode. First one or the second one, really. No, it'd be the second episode. But this time around, I'm going to show you what I think is the simplest method for lashing the valves, getting them all accurate without really having to know anything really, without worrying about firing order, without worrying about what cylinder's in the middle of the rock. The first bit of advice I'll give you is when you're going to do this sort of thing, don't do it late in the afternoon, you're tired, you're 3 beers deep. Don't do it then, all right? No, wait till the morning when you're only 1 beer deep. No, what I'm saying is it's early morning, clear head, but hypothetically you're on a time schedule and you need to get it done now. This is the simplest way. Right, so all rockers are on, but they've all got clearance. No, they don't. That one does not, Michael. Let's back it off. That's the first step. Back all of the rockers off so they've got clearance. All of them. Doesn't matter where they are in their cycle. Make sure they're in the push rod. And what we're going to do is we're going to turn the engine 90 degrees each time. We're going to rotate it 4 times. Don't know why I picked that up, because the first step, start wherever you want. You don't have to find top dead center or anything. I'm literally going to go from there to 90 degrees. But grab your push rod and bring your posi lock. Come here, look. Keep an eye out for that sort of thing. That push rod wasn't in the lifter properly. But grab your push rod and just wiggle him and bring your rocker down till there's no wiggle. Still spins, no wiggle. And do that with all of them. Don't worry about where it is on the camshaft, and I'll get to that. Just so there's no wiggle. No pressure, but no wiggle. And you're like, but some are on the top of the lobe. Yeah, I know, that's where this comes into it. So grab your 90 degrees, we're going to go there to there. And you do it again. Do it again. Go around and check them. Still no lash. That one's loaded. Lash. See? So adjust him down. See, that one's got heaps of lash. That one. So that would have been one that was on top of the lobe before. You've now found it's off the lobe, so you adjust your lash out. No lash. No lash. Plenty of lash. He was, again, that would have been on top of the cam. No lash. Go again. Only go there to here this time because the water pump got in the way. 90 degrees. Go looking for lash again. There, right there. So that was one that was on the lobe. Are you with me? So it doesn't matter where your engine is cycled, at some stage you're going to find all of the rockers are off the lobe. They're on the base circle. See, that's only really taken 2 turns and I've got no lashing any. But the ones that are on top of the cam previously, we'll find them now. So 3rd turn of 90 degrees and go looking for the lash. There he is. Last turn at 90 degrees. No lash. Righto, so now if you're feeling anally retentive, do it again. 90 degrees from there to there. Check for lash. Why I like this way is if the phone rings, if somebody comes to talk to you, you just turn to another 90 and go again. I'm bad for it. I start talking and don't look at what I'm doing. So in 2 cycles, I can know that I've got every single rocker at 0 lash, and that's the important bit. I saw an American race car engine builder do this and went, why didn't I figure that? It's because he's a race car engine builder and I'm not, that's why. So once they're all at 0, like everything's at 0 now, right? So you're just going to make sure your nut isn't going to bottom out. And I'm going to go, generally with hydraulic lifters, you're going to go minimum half a turn. I would say maximum full turn. I'm going to split the difference. So half turns here, I'm going to end up here. So if I go quarter, half, 3/4 turn, and lock down my nut. And again, so if I go, it doesn't matter where you start, so you go quarter, half, 3/4 of a turn. And lock down your posi. Quarter, half, 3/4. You get the gist. Because if everything's 0 lash, now it doesn't matter if it's on a lobe, off a lobe, whatever, you know you need, in this case, 3/4 of a turn. So I can just literally go along them, 3/4 of a turn. Righto, intake manifold. Clean all this down, intake on. One thing I'm told is a very good practice to get into is a tiny bit of silicone around your water ports or your water jackets. I'm just checking the gap here because you've got to fill that with silicone. Those little cork gaskets, you don't use them. If I was sensible, I'd say that manifold probably needs machining to make that gap smaller, but I'm not. I'm just doing what I've got. So I'm going to have to put a real nice bead down there, real nice. Might seem like a lot, but like I said, I've probably got a 5mm gap I've got to fill there. And it sucks taking it back off, so I'm going to make sure it touches. If there's anywhere around these water jackets that looks sketchy too, and there's plenty, just wipe a little bit, just so when it comes in contact it mates into its own silicone. See, if you had all perfect stuff, you wouldn't know all these little dodgy bullshit tricks. I guess the theory behind that is when the silicone there, you've smeared it in, if there's little pitting marks, touches that silicone, it's got a better chance of sealing rather than that silicone trying to squish into these little holes. So if you're wondering what's the little bits of tape, these little fellas have got dowels there, there, there and there, and you can put plugs in them, holds the gasket in place. But this aftermarket manifold, it's covering the dowels slightly. So I just put tape where the manifold isn't going to touch, and that's good enough for me. First stage is only like 17 Newton meters, which it doesn't go down that low, so I'm just sort of pulling it to there. Precisely to there. See? They look racy, don't they? Like it's a race car. Nope. Because I'm too lazy to measure stuff. Oh, and you can't put that on wrong, it's got a keyway. You knew that, surely. So now I've sort of got this stand I've got to put together, because if you remember, the engine cradle or the startup cradle is made for one of these stands. I'll get that guy assembled, I'll get the motor sitting in the cradle, and then we can start fitting flex plate, Welsh plugs in the back. We might even set up the distributor once I've swung it. Yeah, all the little things. So that was potentially the most fun you can have standing up. I smiled the whole time I was putting that together. It looks so good. And this stand, it's awesome. My head's running 1,000,000 miles an hour right now. Oh, I had one failure. The starter motor, I tried to test it. It wound really slowly. And I really want this thing to wind fast for oil pressure and whatever else. I know I've already said it, but I am going to try and prime this thing externally, but you still don't want a starter motor just barely kicking over. Anyway, back to my stand. You saw me lift the 327, the free 327, straight off the stand in its little cradle. These little cradles, they're only about $100. So I just bought one for each motor, whether it be Holden or Chevy, whichever. And now you can literally pull it off the stand, sit it on the floor and roll it around in one piece, like this. So cradle and all, the Chevy's out, and you can roll it around into position and it's ready, sitting like that, to go into the HK. And now the 308 on there, just plumbing it up actually took longer than I expected, but as I said, it was a ton of fun. It's just going to take 90% of the anxiety out of it. If I painted the engine bay on the HJ, I'd be trying to break a new engine in, headers in there, everything, just not trying to scratch everything. It's just, I just want to break it in like this, and then it's ready to go in the car. So then when the 253 we lift out, paint the engine bay, glide on in. I do have, I said I had a couple of failures. The starter was one. The other one, it's not a failure, but it's something I've got to work on. See, I've got my headers, right? And they all but fit except for that gap, and it's here. Hits on the stand. So I'm going to cut that off, mark it, cut it off, move it across, and the other side, it hits on there to get the headers on. I want the headers on there. I want to be able to push a muffler on. This is some of the reasons I'm buzzing, right? I bought that radiator. It wasn't cheap. It was actually just over 400 bucks, but it came with thermos, and it also came with all the wiring and a temperature switch. I'm not going to use a temperature switch on this motor, but I will when it goes in the car. It came with a switch as well, pumped. Here's the good bit though. They're the hoses for the car. That one's stretched pretty tight, but it worked. In other words, the gap there is relatively right. It's at its absolute stretch to make it, but it made it, so that worked perfectly. I had to modify, I found this bracket wasn't the original alternator bracket, so I had to modify that. But other than that, just cleaned everything up. I have already set up the timing, and if you're disappointed that I didn't go through that and show that, go back to the free 327 episode, the Statesman episode. Geez, what else did we pull a distributor out of? I think the White HZ Ute. There's a lot. So top day, absolutely buzzing. Tomorrow, headers, modify the stand, spark plugs. I haven't got spark plugs, and of course that starter. If it doesn't turn up, I might pull the factory one apart. Maybe. Anyway, it just seems really slow. So, I tested it on the ground just with a 12 volt battery and just some jumper leads and just arcing the solenoid across, and it works fine. Maybe if I compared it to another stock one. Has the 253 got one? Yeah, the 253 does have another starter, and if worse comes to worse and I can't get my starter tomorrow, I'll pull that one, test if there's any speed difference, and just use whichever one's better. Anyway, really pumped. You have no idea how pumped I am. Actually, I'll tell you how pumped I am. You know those little dogs that wag their tail like that and you go to pat them and they piss? If somebody patted me, I'd piss, for sure. Righto, see you in the morning. So we are all set up, headers on, fuel's ready, and here's that external oil pump system I've been banging on about. I've got just an aftermarket transfer pump, clean oil, and I've plumbed it into top of the pump there. That's where your pressure gauge sender goes. So this is going to send oil both ways. It'll try and push it back through the pump, but there's going to be a restriction there, so it's actually going to push it through the motor and hopefully through all of the oil galleries, and then I'm just going to rotate the motor by hand to try and fill those lifters to prime it, and that means we should have a full pump, all the oil right through the motor, and this is the moment of truth. Will it work? I've got the cover off because, look, I've got oil, so now I'm just going to rotate it by hand. I wanted to see oil come out there, I just didn't think it'd come out that quick, but you can actually hear it. But I'll rotate this over, and why I rotate it is to get all the lifters in a different spot and try and get some oil through all of those lifters. That actually shocked me. I expected that to work its guts out because I'm necking that pipe down fairly well. I expected that to really struggle to prime that, but nope, took all of about 2 seconds. Righto, go again. Mate, it is spitting out. I'm putting the cover back on. On with the rock cover. That is a goer. There you go. You Holden guys, don't worry about greasing the pump. Actually, did I explain that? Generally, and I've done it before with older used motors that we found, like the Statesman and the old HZ Ute that we had, you take the pump off, you pack it with grease, or some people use Vaseline and that. You just got to be careful how much you put in there because you're just going to clog up the filter. But short term, pack it with grease. That closes up the tolerances of the pump and makes it suck better, because if you remember, this thing's got a pickup that comes from the front of the motor all the way to the back. So this one, I unwrapped the pump and it said don't do it, it'll void warranty. That's why I thought, I had a mate of mine tell me about this pneumatic one that he had, and I thought, why can't I just use an electric one? Well, I can tell you now, you can. I think I had this problem before. My coil power keeps disappearing. Disappears the minute I hit it. Why? Why is my coil power failing? As soon as I hit the key, it disappears. Random, but my coil power kept disappearing every time I'd hit the starter, which is odd because I've used this before. It's not the first time I've used it. So, quick rewire. I had the starter trigger piggybacking off the ignition switch. Wondering if that was interfering with it. So I've just piggybacked it off the fan, which I'm not even going to have running till it gets hot. Slow down. What's going on? As if I wasn't anxious enough, that's just added another dimension. I've now wound it quite a bit. Ignition on. Let's go. Come on. Oh, look at that. Slow down. It's got to be the relay or something. Must be having relay issues. I've now got the coil running directly straight to the switch, which is not optimum. Fucking fuel everywhere. Fuel everywhere. And I've got a live wire hanging there. Jesus. Worst braking ever. You should see the oil running out of this thing. I've never seen a sump gasket leak so bad ever. I've never seen a gasket leak so bad. Have a look at this. It was literally pouring down the block. Look, literally running down the block. I had to hose the header because I thought it was going to catch fire. I cannot get over that. Tighten it up, I'll see. I've got to get it going. One more go. I've got to at least get a couple of minutes on it, but that I can't do any more with that sump. That is the worst. Okay, so this is my level of confidence right now. I have oil everywhere. One thing I noticed is the oil gauge was flickering, but I cracked it at the sender, or at the fitting, cranked it, and there's oil pressure everywhere. So I don't know what's going on with the gauge. Anyway, let's forget the gauge. It's got oil pressure. I've got a hose. Let's catch this thing on fire probably. Completely out of fuel. I'm 99% sure the fuel pump just shit itself if I didn't have enough going on already. Righto, take, I don't know, was this the 7th go? No, I don't know. But I've just given it a second to get my head back together and figure out what's going on. Sender gauge, the oil pressure gauge, pulled the fitting off, blew the line out, big chunk of assembly lube. So that's why that was fluctuating or whatever. Oil pressure's fine. Removed the fitting, wind the motor over, pissed everywhere. Did I put that back on tight? Yes, I put it back on tight, and you're not going to believe it. What was that? Hot. Anyway, fuel pump didn't shit itself. Fuel pump is fine. What actually happened was, I don't know whether I leant on the stand or whichever, but I moved it and my pickup came off the bottom, so it ran out of fuel here. So we'll get that back to the bottom and we'll be fine. So it's back to being absolutely flawless, except I've had like 3 goes at starting it and it's leaking oil. And here's a word of advice: if you ever see a blue rubber gasket, a one-piece sump gasket in your gasket kit, throw them down there somewhere and never ever use one. Initially I thought it might have been me not torquing it down enough. No, it's just shit. Just absolute shit. Alright, let's go again. Why did I shut it down? Because I'm starting to worry about the oil level. Never have I ever had to worry about oil level in a break-in. It is pouring out that side of the sump. Absolutely ridiculous. Look at the oil. That's how much is leaking out of it. It is literally just a constant stream running down there. It's everywhere. The only thing I can think of is, was I not supposed to put silicone on that rubber sump gasket? Like, I've seen one-piece sump gaskets before, but they're always got ribs in them. And I know not to put silicone on them. This did not. It was just a smooth bit of rubber. I would have thought the bit of RTV would have helped it. Maybe it's my fault. Maybe it's not the sump gasket. I haven't even touched the timing or anything. It's running. I've got enough going on without worrying about, is it timed right? I can't even, well, I could go and order a sump gasket, but we're halfway there. If I can get a final 10 minutes on it without running out of oil, it was literally on the add mark, so it had used from the full mark down to the add mark. It hadn't used it, let's put it all out here. That's it. Worst braking ever, but it's done. I might flick these covers off when it cools down. Just check the rockers. I'm just not going to run it any longer. That was roughly the same time that it squirted out 1.5 litres. There's oil everywhere. Mental note, go with your first thoughts. When I saw that sump gasket, I said, oh, that's different, that's new. Haven't seen a rubber one piece. Never want to again either. I've never had to degrease a brand new motor after breaking it in. I could have left the sump off it and leaked less oil. That's how much oil it leaked. I can't get over it. Is it my fault? Maybe. I don't know. Do you not use silicone? I keep going back to that. That's the only thing I can think of. So that didn't feel much like a victory. It threw some shit at me, that's for sure. The relay, I think, has failed, is why I couldn't get spark initially. The fuel leak was a pinched O-ring in that little rod there that transfers fuel. It's a rebuilt carby, and when I pulled it apart, the side of the O-ring was pinched. And that damn sump gasket. I don't know what's to go with that. Maybe I shouldn't have used RTV on it. I don't know. Anyway, but I've whipped the cover off. I've checked the rockers. None of them are loose. So at this point, I've got 26 minutes. You're supposed to have about 30, but I've got 26 minutes on it breaking in, and I've got no clearance in any rockers. So at this point, it seems like I haven't lost the cam. Considering how much went wrong and how many times I had to start and stop it, it surprises me. And the only thing I could probably put that down to is a lot of assembly lube when I was putting it together, and pre-priming it with that oil pump. So I would have had oil everywhere quickly. But yeah, that wasn't the prettiest one ever. I've only ever had one worse, and everything went flawlessly. But we lost the cam at the end. That's why it was worse. And that turned out to be slightly, maybe too heavy a valve spring, but anyway, it seems okay. You can't accuse me of editing out all the garbage. That's as raw as it gets, that one. That one was not my finest work, but we got there in the end. So hopefully next episode will go a little bit smoother, and that is sump gasket first and foremost. but then 253 out, 308 in, paint the engine bay, and then 308 in, and we'll get this thing one step closer to hitting the road. Alright, I know, not the prettiest video ever, but I'll see you next time, and thanks for watching. So if you have taken the piss, isn't it? So I'm sort of that was, surely I've got to be getting better at this. Going forward. I'm not a fan of that can. This is a shit can. I'm not kidding, that is the worst can I've ever used. It is impossible to push that button down. I'm dead set going to swap the end off that. That is shit house. Oh, this one's getting hard too. About to lose me shit. That is like, that is I want to throw that in the bin. You VHT.